The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Represented by Banks & Jones, welcome to the program as we are loaded up. Caleb Calhoun joins us now with a tax burden for the first time. Caleb with a young son that was born during his break, and we're awfully glad to have him back. Caleb, one of our best videos ever, did incredibly well because everybody was congratulating you. And for those that don't know, when you talk on the message board, and we appreciate you doing that, it helps the algorithm. So everybody loves you and everybody loves young Quincy. The question is, do you love sleep yet? Because that's going to come. How are you, sir? Oh, your mic's muted for some reason. You got your mic muted.
Sorry. Well, the lack of sleep has me playing like a rookie today, guys. But yeah, when does it come? When does it happen? I mean, look, my wife has it way harder than me with the lack of sleep. So big shout out to the missus on this for doing a lot to help me be able to get back on and do the show. I will say that.
Big piece of advice I got for you. I would suggest this. How about this, Caleb? My big piece of advice would just be let her handle it. This is the age in which there's not much you can do. I mean, you want to throw ball with it and stuff, but you can hold it, but that gets old kind of quick, doesn't it?
It does. It's you're right, this.
Right. Let's get to today's tough question. By the way, 30 years ago that the OJ chase happened. How insano is that? So we might talk about most hated Vol. Also on the program, represented by Banks and Jones. Is the world still anti-Tennessee? Tony Vitello had some comments to that effect. By the way, Tennessee just stupendous in the College World Series. Friday night was unbelievable. Still, the way they came back in the night, and then to be in control on Sunday and advance. They'll play Wednesday at 2:00 against the winner of North Carolina and Florida State, which is 2:00 Eastern time on Tuesday. So there you go. I don't think the world is still anti-Tennessee, which I want to get into. Cooper Mays, James Pierce, also named All-Americans. That's awesome. Would you take Eli Drinkwitz or Lane Kiffin if you had to hire a coach? Influential teams by Bill Connolly. The Vols don't make the top 30 of most influential teams ever. We'll discuss that. In Big 12 naming rights, how about the Dr. Pepper SEC presented by Golden Flake? We'll discuss a lot going on the program. It is today's tough question, and it is now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Caleb, pretty simple question. No matter what the Diamond Balls do moving forward, is this trip to Omaha with 2 wins already a success? What say you, sir?
No, it's not it's not already a success. I said at the outset of the tournament that it's championship or bust for Tennessee, largely because Tennessee keeps touting these Directors Cup standings and where they stand as a college athletics program, as an all-around program. And oh my gosh, we are just amazing, guys. We are great in every sport. Look at us winning here, here, and here. And they keep not winning championships. So this is extra pressure on Tennessee baseball to deliver, not just for Tennessee baseball, but to deliver for the university. Because if I'm going to keep hearing about how good Tennessee is across all sports, I got to see some hardware with that. And that hasn't happened yet. So maybe that's unfair to Tennessee baseball, to be fair. Maybe that's unfair because it's not like other sports haven't held up their end. The softball program choked in the super regionals earlier this year. And football, basketball haven't won any championships. Women's basketball has completely fallen off the map. But it is what it is. the talk that the university has given, the talk that Danny White has given to promote this university to say we're an everything sport, requires a championship come with it at some point. And we're in year 3 of all this promotion about that. And Tennessee now is at that point where they're knocking on the door and it's time for them to deliver. Now, I'll say this. They overcame a huge hurdle because getting past that first weekend and winning 2 games, that's like if they were – the chokes weren't just chokes of like, oh, pushing on the door and losing at the end. No, there were flameouts in multiple sports. You know what I mean, Dave? Like they would get to the College World Series and just lose both games and be done. Or they wouldn't even make it like the Super Regional 2 years ago. So to get out of the first weekend with 2 wins and no losses, that's a gigantic hurdle cleared mentally and just factually that other Tennessee baseball programs haven't been able to clear. But no, that's not meeting what they need to meet.
I think it's a success. And part of that is me projecting ahead, which may not be fair. You have to pardon me. I'm dealing with a little bit of an allergy issue. Sorry, Caleb. But I think it's already a success because they've done better than they've done in any College World Series before, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. But they finished 4th, which would be the best that they have finished. And they've won 2 games in Omaha, but never more, correct? Am I wrong on that?
They won 3 in Omaha back in they actually won 4 in Omaha back in 1951, and then they went to the title game and they lost.
I'm talking like since the 90s, since the modern era, since they
history matters. You can't just history is not just when you started following.
I agree, but let's go with where we are in the modern era. You would agree there's a difference there. So what's the most games they've won since 90?
I think, yeah, I'll give you, since Rod Delmonico came along.
Yes. So,
I think it's only been 1.
Well, and I think that Tennessee also has a certain moxie here. And I'm not just saying this to endear myself to you as Tennessee fans. I'm saying this because I believe it. And I believe after what I saw on Friday that it may have been just good fortune, Caleb, but it may have been really clutch hitting, or it may have been all the above. But whatever that is, typically can propel you to something special. If you go back and look at each Tennessee team, and I'm going to do that actually today, if you go back and look at the 1998 National Championship football team, there was the Arkansas play. There were other plays as well. If you want to go back to basketball, for instance, last year making the Elite Eight, there were plays there made, but that just kind of feels like the type of game that sets the die, so to speak, that it's cast. And it's brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off. So, Caleb, I'm going to say that this team is already a success because of the hurdle they've cleared, because they have 2 wins, and because I definitely think they'll win at least 1 more. And I'm going to go on record, and I will tell you if I'm wrong. I think they win it all. I've watched a lot of baseball, and to me, they just have a certain moxie that they didn't have last year, and that a lot of the teams in Omaha don't have this year. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but Friday I thought was really special, and you usually don't follow that up with a big goose.
No, look, I'm with you overall, and I've predicted that they're going to win it all too, and I think they will. And I'm with you on the mental hurdle. I mean, I think a big part of that is you bring up the 98 team. Dave, you covered that team. They escaped Florida. Let's call it what it is. They escaped Florida. I'll get some heat for this. Florida probably should have won that game. But the fact that they escaped, didn't it feel like the minute they escaped that game that, oh, this team is meant to win and they're going to win every game they play? So like, even wasn't that the mental hurdle they cleared? So like when they played Arkansas later in the year and all hope seemed lost, it's like, I think the mental hurdle of the Florida game made them think, we'll still find a way to win this game.
No, that's a really good point. And that could come up in game 3 for Tennessee's game 3, not game 3 of the series, but that could come up in game 3. Caleb, if they're down late, you look back at game 1, your first game, and you say, hey, that's an interesting take you had. Had they not won that Florida game, do they lose the Arkansas game? Is that a 2-loss team? Probably so. I mean, I had never thought of it like that, but you probably don't believe late. You probably don't have as much to play for. So that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to remember this name, Medicare Misty, coming back in exactly about 30 seconds. Cooper Mays and James Pierce get big-time recognition. And is the world still anti-Tennessee?
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All righty, here we go. Talking some Tennessee baseball. Didn't think we'd be doing a lot of that. Hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. And Tony Vitello had some comments afterwards. And every coach does this, okay? Every coach loves to do this. It's us against the world. It's us against the world. Well, 2 years ago, Tennessee was able to do that because they were kind of jerks or jackwagons or whatever you want to call them. And they were your jerks and he loved them and you should, but they had the celebrations and they were giving the one finger salute to other players, maybe umpires at times. Vitello said this group seems to stick together. Quote, I'm sure anti-Tennessee people will argue, but there's a certain maturity there over the course of 9 innings with all the teams that can happen in a game. Two-part question. Is the anti-Tennessee thing still out there? Maybe in Vitello's mind, but it is out there in baseball circles. And then part two, poor journalism, but Caleb can handle it. Is this team mature? I'll give you my latter answer first. I think they're very, very mature, and that was evident Friday night in the way they handled business on Sunday. So 2 questions for Caleb, sir.
Yeah, they're much more mature. They're very mature. I think many of them were burned by, the program itself was so burned by 2 years ago. That level of humiliation can be very maturing in a lot of ways. I guess the best comparison you could have is 2011 LeBron when he first went to Miami and said, we're not going to win 5 or 6 or 7. We're going to win all these rings. And they could flame out and lose to Dallas in the NBA finals. But it was the best thing that ever happened to him because then he came back and won back-to-back finals MVPs, was so much better the next couple of years. I think things like that do humble you. The anti-Tennessee bias, I think on social media, a lot of it's there. This is a two-way street, guys. Vol Twitter, to their credit, will go to bat for Tennessee like nobody else goes to bat for their program. And you should do that. That's what makes a program great. If you're a program, you want that level of passion, right, Dave?
Absolutely.
But the backlash is going to be what comes with it. So we start with Friday. We all know the controversial, did Blake Burke go or not on Friday against Florida State? And for those who weren't paying attention, it was 2 strikes, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th. Tennessee's down 11-9. Blake Burke on the next pitch, check swings. And many people thought he went. And it's a judgment call by the ump. If I were making a judgment call.
I want to interrupt you for a second because you know I was an umpire for like 6 or 7 years, right?
Did not know that, actually.
Yeah. So I was an umpire. It's the way I got through high school and college. So I didn't even think he was close to going around, which speaks to your point because everybody said he went around and on Twitter that wasn't a Tennessee fan. And good for you, Vitello. Play up the anti-Tennessee thing because is it still out there? Yes, it is. There's some people sitting in those broadcast booths or in that press box thinking, those Vols or those jackwagons from 2 years ago, I kind of hope they lose. I guarantee you that is happening with some people, Caleb. And play it up. It's not as strong, but it's still there. And don't think some of these from the Blue Bloods. That's why I have trouble with some Kentucky basketball fans. From the Blue Bloods of college baseball, they'll say, yeah, that up-and-coming Tennessee team, even though they're 30 years deep, and you said even deeper, making the College World Series, they got what they deserved. There will be some people that say that. Well, they're not.
Yes, that's okay. I want to get back to what I was talking about for a second because it ties into Tennessee fans. But just as a side note, that's what they said about the Miami 80s teams, right? I mean, the Miami 80s teams were they came across as very arrogant, but wasn't their whole thing was we're taking on the college football establishment that doesn't want us to be here?
Yep.
And yeah, and the Notre Dame fans of, oh, how dare Miami run up the score on Notre Dame? So unclassy.
I missed the voice.
We win classily. And then, of course, Penn State, of all schools, going, victory with honor. That was their phrase, victory with honor. Okay, Penn State. Yeah, so I totally think Tennessee is playing that role. Now, where some people will say the hypocrisy comes in, and Dave, let me just play a little devil's advocate. Because, again, to finish this, basically the ump ruled that he didn't check swing, next hit, which would have ended the game, but he ruled it a ball. Next hit, Burke gets a hit, drives in 2 runs, and then Tennessee goes and wins 12-11. So the reason that's kind of relevant is, Dave, I want to throw this at you. A lot of Tennessee fans were saying even if he went, there were missed calls throughout the game. That happens. And there were some. There were a couple of balls. The ump had I don't know if you noticed, Friday, the ump had an insanely wide strike zone and then had a narrow one on Sunday.
He did.
And yeah, so it does go both ways. However, people brought up that Tennessee fans weren't willing to say that when they pelted refs with mustard bottles in the Ole Miss football game a couple of years ago. And now I will defend Tennessee fans and say they pelted refs off. People think they pelted it off a bad spot on the final call. There were about 7 missed calls that game that went against Tennessee in the football game. And that's why they were so angry. And that was just the final breaking point. However, I just want it out there. People think Vol Twitter is hypocritical for saying missed calls happen in this instance, but them being the same fan base that threw mustard bottles on the field 3 years ago.
I'll go back to that call. I'm a little surprised that Tennessee got that call because I've been in that position on third baseline or first baseline. You can be in that position if it's a right-handed batter. And that's a tough call to make. I mean, that's a tough call because the head umpire called it a strike, and that's really difficult to overturn that guy. They don't like to be overturned. And I mean, like as a former umpire, it's going through my head. I'm like, he's going to challenge it, and he's not going to get it. And I didn't think they were going to get it, and they got it. It's good for them because it was the right call. Rick Terry Jewelry Design, that's your right call. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. Check it out right up there. We have everything displayed. Can you see the necklaces now? Caleb, you've been gone a while and dealing with babies, so I don't know if there's sleep in the eyes.
I see the necklaces.
Okay, we got the cufflinks right there, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to argue with myself, which you're not supposed to do in public. But as I argue with myself, I see you've got a Chris Burke in the booth, and the other guy whose name suddenly escapes me seems to really respect Tennessee's ability to hit. I almost think that Tennessee's a little bit of a favorite among the viewing audience because they hit a lot of home runs, and they've told that big park that, hey, doesn't matter. We can still hit home runs. I almost think instead of play it up, Tony Vitello, but I don't think there's an anti-Tennessee bias. In fact, I think there's a positive Tennessee bias.
I mean, he wasn't hired by Danny White, but Tony Vitello, nobody fits the mold of a Danny White type of hire than Tony Vitello. I think a few years from now, Dave, we're going to shock fans when some people first pick up Tennessee and we're like, Vitello wasn't hired by Danny White, because this guy is all about offense and fun and entertainment. And that's exactly the direction White goes with his hires. I'm kind of with you. And it's not just because of the home runs. They put a lot of balls in play because data shows this, by the way. One of the oldest lies in sports, one of the biggest lies in sports history is that chicks dig the long ball. The long ball is a part of what's sexy in baseball, but it's
Chicks
actually
big pictures too. So I can't speak all of a sudden, but I will tell you from a personal experience, losing a girl to a pitcher.
Oh, okay. So what I was going to say was that
it may have been a lot different.
If you think about it, and this is the truth with baseball, a ball in play is much more fun to watch than a home run. Like a ball, a ball hit a line drive down the left field line that hits the wall, sends 2 or 3 runners home, and you want to see if the third runner is going to get thrown out. That's more fun to watch than a home run. And Tennessee does that very well. That's how they came back and won on Friday. So I think that Tennessee baseball is in a great position right now. And you're right. They get past North Carolina on Sunday. They should absolutely embrace the villain role. And even if it's not there, I mean, what was it Michael Jordan used to do? He used to like create reasons to have a chip on his shoulder and tell himself that people don't like him.
I do that all the time. That's like my thing. I think Dylan nailed it. We're just flashy, and some people take it as cockiness, and others see it as confidence. Dylan, I think you're absolutely right with this year's team. Not 2 years ago, though, Caleb, right?
No, not 2 years ago. 2 years ago, team was absolutely cocky. Throwing the middle finger to the camera when you hit a home run. I mean, like that's not challenging the norms of baseball. That's just I'm going to openly be a POS. And,
portions, yes, exactly right. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friends at Neubert Collision Center. We're going to talk some football. That's right. A couple of All-Americans. That's right. Pretty cool.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Please hit that like and subscribe button if you don't mind. I know we've been a bit vacant for a little bit as I took some time, and so did Caleb. Caleb had a much better excuse. It is funny how at different stages in our lives we are, as Caleb is one day he is having a baby with his wife in the delivery room, and that's, needless to say, stressful, right, Caleb? How did everything go, by the way? Pretty smooth?
Yeah. It was a C-section, so we were in the hospital for 3 days, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. And at the same time, what am I doing? I'm driving stuff down to Chattanooga for my 21-year-old daughter to move in her new dorm. And Caleb has a son. I'm just thinking, man, just get ready, Caleb, because you've got about 30 years of doing stuff for that little one, but you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it. And I couldn't be happier for you. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Cooper Mays and James Pierce named Phil Steele All-Americans. Now, you're not going to see us go crazy on these All-American lists with the exception of AP and coaches, which will come right before the year, but we do respect Phil a lot, and we'll have him on the show. So, Cooper Mays and James Pierce, which of the two has the bigger impact, I should say, on the Vols season this year?
Oh, that one's not even close. That one's Cooper Mays. Cooper Mays is the anchor to make the entire offense go. Now,
well,
I say that.
I tell you what, can we turn that into 4 downs? Because you're going in a different direction than I thought. Cooper, what should people do?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Let's go 4 downs right now. Brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so we got the first down out of the way.
Coop here. First down.
And the question was, who will have the bigger impact, Cooper Mays or James Pierce? Named Phil Steele All-Americans. You took Cooper. I will too. I'm going to take the safe way out. But I'm going to ask you this.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Is it good or bad if it's James Pierce, if he has a bigger impact than Cooper Mays?
Is it bad for James Pierce if he has a bigger impact?
Is it good or bad for Tennessee if James Pierce has a bigger impact than Cooper Mays this upcoming
Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's bad for Tennessee because, again, other edge rushers can have the impact. If Cooper Mays doesn't have the biggest impact, that means he probably didn't play or didn't play fully healthy. And Tennessee doesn't have an answer on the interior of the offensive line if Cooper Mays is not out there.
Okay, totally disagree with you. There's not another guy like James Pierce on the roster. I'm not saying that they would be better or worse necessarily, but they actually could be better. I don't think Bison Lang's quite ready, but I think he's close. If he had to go, I'm not sure they would go that direction yet, but I think he's fairly close. I think they would probably go along a hodgepodge at center like they did last year. But I would tell you that whoever the quarterback is, which is obviously Nico, but last year we wondered a little bit, he'll be better suited to handle the fronts than Joe Milton was in Gainesville. I think if James Pierce has a monster season and Cooper Mays has a good season, Tennessee is undefeated and wins the national title. So I'm going to say in my scenario that Tennessee can be better with a better Pierce than Mays.
James Pierce is a rare talent, but you say Bison Lang is close, but I watched Tennessee in 2021 when Cooper Mays played banged up. I watched him last year when he.
I didn't say real close, did I?
You said close.
I didn't say real close, though.
No, you said Bison Lang is close to getting it right, I guess. But Cooper Mays is a unique talent. Now, I say this. I want to point this out here, though, quite honestly.
Did you say Cooper Mays is a unique talent? Did you mean James Pierce or Cooper?
James Pierce is a unique talent. Cooper Mays is a unique talent, too, in the sense of how well he understands this offense and how smart of a player he is. Now, I want to point this out because this is a shocking
leverage.
Yes, leverage. Now, I say all this knowing that, like, in terms of who has more All-American potential, that's clearly James Pierce because James Pierce is going to be much better. Could be the best player at his position. I don't know if Cooper's the best center in in college football, but he's more valuable to Tennessee specifically for what Tennessee's trying to do. So I will tell you this, Dave. I was a little shocked that Cooper Mays made the All-American list. And that's
too, but I was happy because I think Phil Steele, and again, I'm giving him love not because he's giving love to one of our guys, but I think he does a really good job. And Cooper Mays, I mean, he's going to be, if you're first team All SEC center, easy for me to say, if you're first team All SEC center, you should be first, second, or third team All American, shouldn't you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, and that would be a huge win for Cooper Mays to get that, and for Tennessee if Cooper Mays gets there. So, and look, Phil Steele has, much to the chagrin of Tennessee, been very accurate with his predictions related to Tennessee over the past 15, 20 years, probably more than any other magazine out there. Phil Steele, just for those who don't know, I'm just going to do a quick throwback. The 2005 team that everybody had number 3 or number 2 in the nation entering the year, Phil Steele had them finishing 3rd in the East alone, and he said they were massively overrated. And boy, did he nail that one, Dave.
Yes. Phil Steele naming James Pierce as an All-American was kind of a simple thing. If he's not an All-American by the end of the year, if he's just an All-SEC player, if he's a second-team All-SEC player, is that disappointment? I guess given the level, I would ask you this question, Caleb. No awards, All-American. Now, let's take injury out of it. All-SEC, All-American, first-team All-American. At what level do you think he needs to perform at to live up to his potential? I hate to say All-American or bust, but he is about that gifted where I think it's All-American or bust.
I can't go there. And the reason I can't go there is, honestly, Dave, that is one position, defensive end, where I'll comment on the defensive line in general, where it's very easy to neutralize a player. You can just run the other way. And I mean, how many times have we seen players that had a ton of hype on the defensive line coming into a year, and they had a major drop off that year because teams just avoided them? And I mean, one example I can give you is, do you remember Jadeveon Clowney after the 2012 season? Remember, he was the biggest thing out going into 2013 and had the biggest drop off ever. But guess what? South Carolina still had its best season in school history that year under Spurrier because teams were going out of their way to avoid Clowney.
Okay, well, I like the Clowney comparison because you did run at Clowney. I think they'll run at James Pierce. I don't think they'll run away from him because he's a speed guy. Will Anderson would be the example to me of a guy that I don't know whether you run away from him or towards him. And he may have had a little bit of a disappointing last season to some people, but I didn't think so because I thought he was incredible against the run. So I think it's going to be run at James Pierce. And you bring up the Jadeveon Clowney comparison. I think that's pretty apt.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that one in particular, and I've been going back in Tennessee history, but I hadn't really gone back in just SEC history. They remind me a lot of each other.
No, you're right. I think they're very similar. And if you remember, Clowney played up on the line in college. He became a linebacker in the NFL over time, but he started playing up on the line. And yeah, James Pierce is very similar to Clowney in that regard. I mean, this is just, you're talking about, I mean, in both instances, you're talking about just straight raw talent, right? More than you could see anywhere else.
Like almost you could not know how to play football and step on there and be okay.
Almost like you could not even practice that hard.
Like you've never even seen a football, but you could show up and probably get to the quarterback. Those are those type of guys, right?
Yeah,
now,
exactly. And edge rusher is the one position where you could do that.
Somebody pointed out on our Sports Treasures message board that Anderson didn't make a tackle against the Vols. No, he didn't, but he was going against a first rounder as well by the name of Darnell Wright. Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN. Sports Treasures. We absolutely love them. And we will be giving away our Tony Vitello autographed baseball today. We will have the drawing today. So if you haven't signed up, we want you to do that. If you can go ahead and put the link to the Patreon page in the message board, I would greatly appreciate it, Caleb. And let me give you an update on a couple of poll questions that I threw out there that you have taken advantage of. Dylan says Clowney was a one-play wonder. If he doesn't go unblocked against Michigan, nobody would have blown him up to that level.
That is not true.
I don't know that he's a one-hit wonder. I will say this. I had serious questions about his feet. And if I knew that, then everybody should have known that. He had foot problems headed into the NFL. You don't want that. All right. Is there an anti-Tennessee bias? Anti-Tennessee anti-bias, as I apparently had a typo there. Yes, 2022 is still a factor. 62% no. Quit being sensitive. 8% no. Vols are being beloved. But this poll question is even a little bit more shocking. Are the Diamond Vols already a success? Yes, 2 wins. No, got to win it all. 2 wins gets 51%. 36% to got to win it all. No, have to win one more. 11%. Are the Diamond Vols already a success? To be a success in the edge rushing position, Tennessee will need other players. So if it's not Pierce, who do you like most out of that group? Tyler Barron is gone. That would probably be the easy answer, or would it, Caleb?
Well, I mean, there's that's where I'm at with it. Is there's a ton of elite edge rushers that are rising stars here. I mean, you could talk about David Hobbs, Shandavian Bradley, Jordan Ross. I mean, are we to believe that none of those? I mean, all of these guys are highly, highly touted recruits, and all of them I think could easily fill the void that Tyler Barron left. I'm just going to be honest. So Joshua Josephs, that's the one I forgot. Joshua Josephs is a budding star. So I think, look, is James Pierce a unique talent? Yes. At the same time, now this is to his credit. James Pierce is so irreplaceable because he's so uniquely gifted But I think like Tennessee's hurting at edge rusher. It's almost like if you have like a ton of elite receivers, but then you got Randy Moss too. It's like if you lose Randy Moss, you could probably replace him, but it's like he's so talented. He's so rare of an athlete that you can't just replace him.
I wouldn't rule out Tyree West either. And I'm going to throw, since we got some names, Caleb Herring and Jason Jenkins' name out there, Tyree Weathersby as well. You mentioned some other names. But I tell you what, I think their MVP at edge rusher is. It's Elijah Simmons, Omar Norman-Lott, guys that provide a push in the middle that are going to help you have more opportunities on the edge. So roundabout, I'm going to agree with you. I think that Cooper has the bigger impact. Our message board was very astute, as they always are, and mentioned that it will probably be less noticeable. Now, that is true, but I think that I think Tennessee will have someone that can fill in and, let's say, be a B player, whereas James Pierce is probably an A-plus player. You want the A-plus player, but I'll give it to you. Coop's the bigger impact because I don't feel as good about his backups, which would be Bison Lang, or however they would hodgepodge shift it around, as I do James Pierce's backups. So that's my reasoning. Your reasoning is what, Florida last year?
Yeah, my reasoning is Florida last year. That's literally it. And also Cooper Mays played 2021 banged up. And Tennessee, they were 7-6, but they had a big problem. Hendon Hooker had a big problem with avoiding sacks. And
Elias says, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Caleb. My bad.
No, I was going to, yeah, that's the difference. Hendon Hooker, he looked a lot better in 2022. And at first I thought he had matured a lot and just got better with his pocket presence. I'm not so sure Hendon Hooker's pocket presence was that great, Dave. I think Cooper Mays was just that crucial.
I didn't think his pocket presence was great. I thought it was good. I thought it was adequate. Elias
it was horrible
says,
in 2021, though.
Oh, yeah. Elias, all that talk about raw talent and never seeing a football field reminds me of the hubbub around Emmanuel Okoye. And let's be fair, the guy's barely played football, and he's coming from Europe, so it could take some time. Nobody thought he was going to have an impact. I didn't think he'd have an impact in his first 2 years. Trust me, I've been down this road with junior college guys. Maybe they're not those NFL Europe guys, but I've been down this road before. It takes some time to play with the big boys, especially you can say, hey, you're playing against grown men in this European league. It's grown men that don't play football a lot. Hey, check out the new gear. Do you like this, Caleb? I'm going to get you one. It's our Off the Hook Sports polo gear that I got from Apex Apparel Group Design. If you call Tyler, mention Off the Hook Sports sent you for your company, and just dial 865-919-3001. It's right below, 865-919-3001. You will get 15% off your first order. But this isn't a money play. Don't think about it like that for your business. Think of it as, I could go online and probably find a lot of this stuff that they do individually and get the mugs and the shirts, but you don't want to do that because they take care of that for you. So that's what your company needs. Call Tyler, 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001, and get 15% off. How about in 2 minutes, we are going to shift gears because Eli Drinkwitz and Lane Kiffin apparently don't like each other. Who would have ever seen that coming? Off the Hook Sports.
All-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge, all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TristarHatsCo.com. That's TristarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TristarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Hey, Dylan, do me a favor. See, you say guys are canceling visits to Georgia to visit Tennessee. I love it. I'd like to do a column on that maybe later today. So I'll tell you what, you can always email me. I think everybody on the board knows my email at this point, but I would like to chronicle that, give you something on Hooker's Corner. Hooker's Corner today, my thoughts on Tennessee's official visit weekend, which I know that recruiting lends itself to hyperbole, Caleb, but this may have been one of the biggest recruiting weekends in the history of the program when you consider the amount of 4- and 5-star prospects they had. So we'll get into that. But did you see on Twitter all the special stuff that they're allowed to do with the smoke machines and the big entrance coming through and all that stuff? Did you see all of that?
I did not see that.
It's all the stuff that Lane Kiffin got in trouble for in 2009. It's the same stuff, which leads us into a perfect transition. Lane Kiffin, Eli Drinkwitz. Okay, I think most people know what I think about Eli, that he's kind of a goofball and not a good coach. But, Caleb, I'm backtracking. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a solid coach. Do I like Missouri in the SEC? No, they don't feel like an SEC team to me, and they never will. No offense, Missouri. I think you're great, but you should be in the All-State Big 12. So, Eli Drinkwitz, how many games did Missouri win last season, Caleb?
How many games did did Missouri win last season? They won 11.
Okay. So that's respect, right? You got to give him respect for that.
Right.
And then I'll give him a little bit of respect for how he's handling the media. He said recently that you guys can predict and do all that you want to do, but we're ultimately going to decide who starts in this game. So stand on business, Josh, is definitely goofy, but he appears to have matured in front of our very eyes. Am I wrong, Caleb?
Well, why don't we just take a look at this video he just did to see how
Just
mature
like
he is?
Recently?
Last week.
Stand on business,
Ready?
Travis. All right,
Right here. Let's just watch this. It was just a 3-second video, but Eli Drinkwitz right here. Here we go. Yeah, that happened.
And playing a guitar there, it appears, for a Mizzou prospect. So we'll get you pulled back up.
And then Lane Kiffin tweets out back at him. He goes, just when I thought Brian Kelly's couldn't be beat, facepalm. Because who remembers Brian Kelly's cringy dance with the recruit a couple of years ago at LSU?
Okay. Who would you rather have, Lane Kiffin or Eli Drinkwitz?
Lane Kiffin. Guys, it's Lane Kiffin. I'm sorry. It's Lane Kiffin.
Okay, why?
I think I'm a hypocrite on this. Because, like, when Eli Drinkwitz does this stuff, for me, it looks so lame and goofy. And when Lane Kiffin does it, I'm like, it's just Lane being Lane.
Okay, but are you just being superficial? Because let's face it, Lane Kiffin's a better looking guy.
Is he, though? Lane Kiffin has
Eli
looks like as good as he looked about 10 years ago.
Eli looks like the guy who's sitting in the corner memorizing the Dewey Decimal System. mean, Lane's
Yeah,
the
but
guy
Lane-
who's out on a Friday night with the, picking up the bachelorette party.
I mean, literally.
Literally.
Okay. It's okay. I'll give you an example. It's kind of like in hip hop when rappers start dissing everybody. I kind of think they're lame, but when 50 Cent does it, it's like I don't know. 50 just seems like the troll that does that because he's funny. Like 50's hilarious. So I don't take it seriously when 50 does it, but I get annoyed when some other rappers like say crazy stuff, and I'm like, I'm that way with Lane. I'm like, I let Lane I don't know why. I just personally let Lane get away with a lot more crazy shenanigans than where I would otherwise judge coaches if they do. And I'll tell you, I'm totally hypocritical with it. And something just tells me like, you know what I think it is, Dave, is that I think Lane is self-aware, isn't he? He's kind of self-aware that he's a little bit of a...
Yeah, but I sense some of that out of Eli now.
Oh, I think Eli thinks he's like showing off some swag when he does this and, showing off some cool, like, I'm one of the guys, I'm super cool. And I think that's what he's doing. Kind of like when like coaches do a dance in the locker room with their players that's like is weird. Like, I think that's kind of like what Eli is doing there. I know that's weird, but I don't know. Lane to me seems very self-aware that he's kind of a bit of a troll on Twitter.
No,
and
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's why I would take Lane Kiffin.
So, new poll question that is up on our message board now. I ask you this: would you rather have Lane Kiffin with off-field issues? Eli Drinkwitz, he's growing on me. So you didn't really assess the off-field issues. You kind of did, but not really. You talked about the tweeting, but there is also all the other talk that was out there. And I don't want to get into it because I don't know that it's 100% true, but I don't need to tell you the rumor about a car and maybe a girl involved and there was a car wreck and all this stuff. I don't know if any of that stuff's true. I mean, I kind of do. But I
think you know the color of the attire that was in the car.
Yes, I think that you have to give Lane some credit for maturing, but that is a factor. I tell you what the factor should be when it comes to choosing your insurance agent is Don Self, State Farm. Don Self, customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers. When you make that claim, you want to know that's paid, and that's State Farm. I know everybody wants to save money in this economy. I get it, but customer service still matters. For 40 years, they're right there in the Collegedale and Chattanooga area. 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126. Go to donself.net, right down below, donself.net. So, Caleb, how would you handle the Lane Kiffin off-field issues if you're making a hire? Let's say you're Florida, because Florida might very well be choosing between Eli Drinkwitz and Lane Kiffin next year. Okay, so you're Florida. Are you a little concerned about the off-field issues? A lot concerned? Are you like, he's almost a 50-year-old man now? I think he'll be 50 any day because he's just a few months younger than me.
I'm not concerned if I'm Florida about the off-field issues. He hasn't had them since he's been at Tennessee, and that was 16 years ago. And look, let's just call it what it is. Lane Kiffin was too young for the Tennessee job. Is that fair to say? He just wasn't mature enough for the Tennessee job at the time, which was something that at the time I remember a lot of Tennessee fans criticized, like, oh, 30, like there's like, who cares about his age? And normally I would say that 33 is fine, but Lane Kiffin was a young 33 mentally compared to some other 33-year-olds.
a young mental. He's a young mental.
He was 33, but it felt like he was like 20. He was living like a 25-year-old. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And by the way, he just turned 49, so I guess he's a year and a little bit of change younger than me. And it was a culture shock, as Dylan writes, going from Fulmer to Kiffin. But Kiffin screwed up a lot too. Do you remember when he put pictures of USC players in the entire complex, the Tennessee complex? He put pictures of USC players because this was going to be USC East. It was going to get you. Well, did they say South? I thought they said East. But anyway, it would get you to the NFL, and that to me didn't go over well at all.
Oh, I remember. I knew that story. Yeah, and also he refused to do the game maxims because he That he was trying to sit there and say Tennessee's adherence to tradition was costing them. So he did the opposite. He was like, let's just reject all Tennessee tradition whatsoever.
Okay, then I'm challenging you. Why are you taking Lane then?
That was 33-year-old Lane. This is 49-year-old Lane. So now mentally he's got the mind of a 42-year-old. Okay, so it was just perfectly mature enough to be a head coach. And so, I mean, I think this Lane Kiffin is totally different. We're talking about a Lane Kiffin that got fired from USC since then, got humiliated, thoroughly regrets leaving Tennessee, got rehabilitated by getting hired by Alabama, so got to work under Nick Saban for 3 years, and he really hasn't had any issues since. I mean, what's the last controversy that Lane Kiffin had? The only one I can remember is about 8 years ago, he got caught lying about his age on Twitter, which was hilarious. But that's kind of Lane being Lane.
Yeah, who hasn't done that? Daniel says the AD lost control to let USC lose that pick. In retrospect, God rest his soul, if Mike Hamilton puts a tougher buyout for Lane, if he's on top of him, and do you remember the name David Blackburn, who was
the AD at Chattanooga?
Yeah. Well, if he'd have been put over there to oversee Lane, let's face it, you hired Lane Kiffin expecting to get the maturity level of Philip Fulmer, but a more innovative coach, right? Because that's all you've been around.
Also a coach with more personality to make a splash against other SEC coaches.
Agreed. And that's all you had been around. So you're like, oh, the coaches just handle themselves with that maturity. That's how they get to this level. And I think Mike Hamilton thought that Lane Kiffin would be like that. I think we all learned pretty quickly that he wasn't. It's not a knock. Again, you mentioned his age, and that is a factor, especially coming from, talk about maturity levels. I think people that tend to come from well-to-do families maybe have a sense of arrested development a little bit.
Well, let's look at Lane Kiffin's backstory. He comes from a well-to-do family of a coach. On top of that, he then went and played. Who did he first coach under, Dave, as an assistant? Hit the assistant lottery working under Pete Carroll just as the USC Dynasty was happening, right?
Yep.
The Pac-12 Dynasty. And so, like, Lane had never really had to deal with any sort of adversity because of that. His first adversity is coaching under the Raiders, where he loses his job in 2 years, but that's not really going to humble you because everybody in the world would be willing to say it was Al Davis's fault at that point. I mean, if you lose your job, if you get fired by Al Davis, you're never going to think it's your fault. I wouldn't think it's my fault if I got fired by Al Davis because he was firing everybody.
Travis says, how is 49-year-old Lane's dating life? Surely he prefers older women now, right? Right. Well, that is the concern. And there have been a lot of rumors and talk about his younger girlfriend. But really, is that something that should be held against him?
That's
Caleb?
business. I don't care about that. I don't care about
Travis
that.
says David Blackburn was one of my high school coaches. He was a great dude. Definitely was. And I will tell you that, oddly enough, it was Philip Fulmer addressing David Blackburn Sr.'s passing that made David Blackburn come to Tennessee and end up almost being their athletic director. I think he is now at MTSU. I would like to see Lane in a job in which he could win a championship, because I don't think he can do so at Ole Miss. And you know why? It's not because I'm rooting for him necessarily. I just want to see if he can do it. I feel like he's kind of Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan won the championships. And I'm older than you, Caleb. So there was a conversation. Who's better, Jordan or Dominique? Sounds stupid now, right? But now we're having that conversation with Eli. There was this conversation too. Jordan can't win a championship. All he can do is score. Okay, well, Kiffin can't win a championship. All he can do is run an offense. So there's part of me that just wants to see him have the opportunity to see if it can happen. Because I don't know which way I'd bet that he'd win a national title or not. If you had to bet a week's salary, what would it be?
I'd bet a week's salary he could in the right spot. It's funny. The phrase was, I've read this literally up until 1991, the most commonly used phrase in basketball was scoring champions or never champions. That's what they would say. And
that is very true.
Yeah, because and you could go back and look, almost always the scoring champion barely had a team in the playoffs. And you're right. It's kind of like, it's the phrase offense wins games, defense wins championships in football. And a lot of times that rings true. I mean, even in today's era of football, I mean, Dave, we talk about this. Who are the last 3 national champions? Michigan, Georgia. All 3 were, I mean, they had a bland offense and they won with their discipline on defense, didn't they? And I mean, that's still weirdly isn't changing much. And so I think it's kind of intriguing with, you're right, but that question applies to Lane Kiffin. That question applies to Eli Drinkwitz. It applies to both of them. But in that regard, it applies to Josh Heupel. I mean, can Josh Heupel get over the hump? I've said this before. It applied to Steve Spurrier. We could say what we want. Spurrier backed into one national title that he was really lucky to get in 1996. And otherwise, Florida, I mean, how often, Dave, wasn't Florida notoriously known as soft whenever they went up against Florida State?
Yeah, they were. And let me ask you this, since you mentioned Heupel. Should he be a little goofier? I mean, Brian Kelly was goofy at LSU. You now have Eli being goofy. Lane's goofy all the time. Does Josh Heupel try to act too cool?
No, I don't think it has any impact. I think Brian Kelly is just like, the goofy behavior of him is the one thing that makes me question him as a coach, because I thought he was the first LSU coach with brain cells since Nick Saban. So, I mean,
Go ahead.
but you know, is Brian Kelly? Speaking of that, I mean, wasn't Les Miles the goofiest head coach in the SEC ever? But the thing was, Les Miles wasn't even aware that he was goofy, was he?
I think he was both, actually. I think he was goofy just because he was goofy, and I think he enjoyed being goofy. And I say that because I was about to interview him one time in West Virginia, and he screamed at one of the managers. He goes, "Don't you be hitting on my wife." He was just talking to her as a joke, and he scared that guy to death. And the guy thought he was fired on the spot and was going to get left in Huntington, West Virginia, or wherever they play that game. Quality Tire Pro, the Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. So I thought he was trying to be funny that time, but most of the time goofy. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more at Quality Tire Pro, downtown Chattanooga, Cherokee Boulevard, or online at qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. Stop by and tell Bo that Dave and Off the Hook Sports said hello. Dave and Off the Hook Sports said hello. Tennessee managed to not give up a touchdown in an entire season, yet they weren't named as one of the most influential teams in college football history. Yes, that's right. What? Hang tight. We're going to dive into that. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
For the record, somebody joking that I reported Tony Vitello to Texas. I think I reported that. Have they hired a manager / coach yet? And why do we call it a manager in the pros, but we call it a coach in college? Discuss amongst yourself. Thoughts, Caleb?
That's a really good question, actually. I mean, that's an incredible question. I don't even know.
I mean, we don't call it a manager. And why do they have to wear the goofy outfits like the players? I've always wondered about that.
Why do they have to wear the goofy outfits?
Yes. Can you imagine Philip Fulmer? I mean, seriously, just imagine for a second Philip Fulmer or Josh Heupel, for that matter, in a football jersey. Would you not pay to see that? How much would you pay to see that?
That would be hilarious. Someone's going to do it one day. Someone's going to do it. Someone's going to wear it. Like Bill Belichick started the casualness with the hoodie. Eventually it's going to go to a t-shirt. Watch, it'll go to a t-shirt. And I think in about 15 years, coaches will be wearing t-shirts on the sidelines.
All right. I think people know how this whole thing works, this off the hook sports thing. So we don't take subscribers to the website. We're based off advertising. So I may have a little bit of insight into what we're going to discuss next. And that is, should the Big 12 consider selling its naming rights? Apparently, they are not just going to consider it, they're going to do it. And it looks like the All-State 12 could be the leader in the clubhouse. Your initial take, could you ever imagine it being the Dr. Pepper conference in the SEC? Let's unpack this thing because, listen, I understand advertising. And I think that, at least I hope I do. And I understand the fact that they have a revenue stream there to compete with the Big 10 and SEC, which right now the Big 12 doesn't have that type of money. But it's a slippery slope, and I'm concerned this is the first step down that slippery slope, the All-State 12. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very concerning. And look, people are trying to make fun of the Big 12. I can't blame them for doing this. They're trying to compete they're trying to stay afloat in the SEC Big 10 dog-eat-dog world, and they're thinking, hey, selling naming rights. I don't understand why they can't do like the Big 12 brought to you by Allstate. You know what I mean? Why do they have to do the All-State 12? I'm not crazy about that. And
well,
I mean, or the way they do bowl.
Let me give you an example of why you're right. Okay. You would consider Norfolk Southern as one of the most established companies and most set in the nation, right?
Right.
Okay. So you've got to have a title sponsor that is firm in what they do. In other words, you're not going to do, I don't know, the Bet US conference. But let's say that Norfolk Southern was your team or was your sponsor. Even they had a major disaster in Ohio, and now there are layoffs there. My concern, and this has happened with stadium naming rights, is you align yourself with someone that doesn't uphold your same moral stance or that gets embarrassed somehow. Guys, none of us ever thought a brand like Tiger Woods would go what he went through and all that. Listen, brands change. And I'm I'm really concerned if I'm the commissioner that I'm just bringing about $2 or $3 million to a particular school. When you do the math, they're going to make about $50 million in the Big 12. And then just for about $3 million, I mean, the SECs would go for, I would think, $250 million.
But here's the difference, though, and this is why I think the SEC wouldn't do it, is the SEC is, unlike the Big 12, the SEC and Big 10 are so brand power that the brand name of those conferences is worth more than any naming rights you could sell. You see what I mean? Like, the brand name of the SEC is more valuable than anything you could rename that.
Well, so, and listen, I know a lot of you aren't NASCAR fans. I don't blame you because it got kind of lame. But that went from the Winston Cup, and goodness gracious, tobacco was pretty solid in their standing, at least we thought, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then they went to the Sprint Cup. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know what the cup is called now, but it certainly, to win the All-State Championship instead of the Big 12 Championship, cheapens it a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely cheapens it. It's going to look weird and ugly, but again, the Big 12 is doing what's necessary in this era. I saw great ways people could have fun with this. I don't know. Josh Pate tweeted out, this was hilarious, Dave. You know who should really buy the Big 12? You know who should really get the naming rights?
I'm open.
Southwest Airlines. And then you can recall it the Southwest Conference again. Bring back the Southwest Conference.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And fly around in semi-safe planes.
Yes, with no first class. Semi-safe planes. That's a good one.
Would you think the SEC would ever consider that? And how much do you think they would get?
I think the SEC would could look. I don't want to call him out, but like I think Greg Sankey sometimes takes the first offer given if he sees more money and doesn't think about the long-term mark and impact. And so I think he would. But I think he knows the backlash would come if you rename the SEC. So they might do like the SEC brought to you by Dr. Pepper or brought to you by Home Depot or something like that. But I don't think they would change their name. Again, I think part of the TV deal is
would it be worth it they did? Am I crazy to say $250 million? The Big 12 is going to get about 30 to 50 million, it looks like.
I think teams will pay $250 million to get the naming rights and keep the name of the SEC. I think a team would pay. Yeah, they'd rather say SEC brought to you by this because the SEC brand is so powerful on its own. The Big 12 is not a powerful brand name. The SEC is a brand name.
Yeah, there's somebody at a Dr. Pepper office that is ready to stroke that check if the SEC ever opens up that opportunity. Do you think they will? You said, do you think Sankey will? I disagree, and I think a lot more of Sankey than you do. That's fine. But I don't think he would take that. I do think he can jump at the first offer a little bit, but I don't think he would take that. I wouldn't want that to be my legacy. Would you want that to be your legacy? I mean, he's on the verge of Caleb, and I know you're a dissenting opinion. Most of the majority thinks that Greg Sankey has done a good job, right? Most.
Yes. I think I'm one who thinks
I don't want to leave it with
that's impossible to run into the ground.
Right. But I don't want to leave it with the Golden Flake SEC conference. Or
no,
that's not how I want to leave it.
I mean, Greg Sankey doing a good job with the SEC is like when Eric Spoelstra became head coach of the Heat, just as they got LeBron and Chris Bosh. Okay, it's like
Eric Spoelstra's the best coach in the NBA. I'll give you, it's Michael Waltrip winning the Daytona 500 twice. That's what it is, because they had a restrictor plate hole the size of a golf ball that knee off because Senior passed away there. That's a great.
It's literally impossible to not do a good job if you become SEC commissioner, because they literally just like crap out more money every year, honestly. And I mean, it's just such like people just love SEC football too much. Do you know how hard you have to work to mess up the SEC? Like you can make one bad decision after another, and they'll still fill the stadiums with fans. And so
yeah, you could do a bad job you could probably do a horrible job for 5 straight years before they'd replace you.
Yeah, exactly. I've said this about Roger Goodell for years. Everybody says, oh, he's such a great commissioner because he's maximized NFL value. That money was coming no matter what. Roger Goodell had nothing to do with that. And so
okay, now Dylan has me where I wanted to go. Could you ever see this being the Tennessee Vols brought to you by Pilot or Calhoun's?
I don't know why teams haven't done that already in the NIL age. I don't know why they don't sponsor that. Why they don't do that now. I mean, you're talking about why not? That's a way to bring more money in. I mean, they're already doing it with arenas.
The Tennessee Vols brought to you by Calhoun's. What would that be worth?
Man, what then Calhoun's could be in Neyland Stadium selling their food. So,
or they could have a Pilot right there, and you could rob some people for hamburgers.
Or you could,
like Keith Richardson did back in the day,
or that's just another way for the Pilot company to steal money from minorities getting gas, like they did.
Hey, Travis brings up a good point. Remember the Winston Cup after they changed it is when they started the struggle. Yeah, you're right, and I think there were a lot of different issues, but it is funny how you remember the Winston Cup. I wonder if you would remember the All-State 12 for years after, even if they had different sponsors. Let's go back to our poll question if you want to get on board. Would you rather have Lane Kiffin with off-field issues? 84% you can vote on our YouTube page. Eli Drinkwitz, he's growing on me. Lane, 84% of the vote. Eli with 16%. What do you make of that?
I just think people see what I see. They just see someone who's a little bit smarter in Lane, who's a little more self-aware. Whereas they see Eli Drinkwitz as a cheesy goofball. Look, Lane Kiffin to me is. I haven't done my SEC ranking of head coaches yet, but like Dave, if tomorrow I was given any team in the SEC and I could hire any head coach, I might hire Lane Kiffin first.
Fair enough.
Over Kirby Smart.
Wow. That's insane. You can't go that
Kirby Smart, we talked about walking into good situations. He walked into a very easy situation at Georgia.
Elias says robbing a simulated gas station would be much more exciting at halftime than the Dr. Pepper challenge. You should have to throw it like a dad blame football. I hate that two-handed push basketball pass that people are using. Have you seen that? It wins every time. Yeah, where they throw it in the circle and they use the two-hand push pass.
Dave, but that money they win, they always give to charity. So come on now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Dave's like, I don't care about those kids in the hospital.
Hey, check out this fantastic. By the way, my daughter may go to Iowa where they sing to the kids in the hospital. I'm excited about that. TriStar hats. Check out this hat right above my left shoulder on the right side of your screen. You can go to tristarhatsco.com. Tristarhatsco.com. For the latest in TriStar Hats memorabilia. You're going to love it. They've got the pullovers, they got the shirts, they got the hats, the trucker caps, all kinds of different styles. TristarHatsCo.com. Use the promo code HOOKED. That's HOOKED. You can get 10% off. We greatly appreciate you doing that. As change gears once again. Most influential teams. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a Tennessee team that didn't give up a single point in a season? Now,
throughout the regular season.
In the regular season. Bill Connelly doesn't believe they should be on the most influential teams. Why?
Bill Connelly's list of most influential teams in college football, what they do is they take a look at teams who changed college football with their play, who changed the landscape of college football, and who had an impact on moving it forward. So the top 30, just for context, 1968 Texas with Darrell Royal as number one. The reason? They won the national championship with the modernized wishbone. And that totally affected how Nebraska, Oklahoma, and even Alabama played in the 70s and moved forward. So what he's looking at is the type of how teams played and how they changed things with their play and with their innovation each year. So, I mean, there's teams like an example on this list is 2010 TCU. Why is 2010 TCU on this list? They went undefeated as a mid-major. That kind of helped set the stage somewhat for the college football playoff and the New Year's Six to keep an eye on mid-majors going forward and give them a look. And so that's what he's looking at.
What are the chances that the 2022 team will be on this list 10 years from now? Tennessee's 2022 team. Because I believe Tennessee is going to have championship success under Josh Heupel. If they have that, that bolsters my argument that it could be one of those transcendental teams. I believe that Josh Heupel's offense with the splits and with the tempo and everything he does is unique. TCU's offense last year, for instance, had some similarities, but you and I both know it's not the same thing. So I'm curious where you stand, Caleb, on that. What do you make of the 2022 team?
I think I think the 2022 team is an appetizer, but I think the 2024 team, if they do what I think they're going to do, that's going to be the one that Bill Connolly puts on this list, because the whole wide splits, Dave, you're going to see it reach a different level with Nico, the quarterback. I mean, you're going to see it reach a level that I don't think any team could possibly reach in this system.
So if Tennessee turns out to truly affect the college football landscape from an X's and O's standpoint, you think it'll be this season that's pointed to as opposed to 2022?
Yes, I do. I think it'll be this season. I think this season is the one everybody will turn to look, and they'll say, wow, that team changed everything. Because then after this year, you're going to see every team run it. And I got to be critical of Connolly on this, because I look at it and how much did you impact things going forward. And as I don't like him, Dave, and me and you have talked about this, I don't like Urban Meyer, but you have to have one of those, the Tebow Florida team on this list, right? Because the whole reason the spread offense took off was the success of Florida, wasn't it?
I would argue, though, the success that he had at Utah, that Urban Meyer had at Utah, everybody knew that it was going to be pretty wild and it was going to work then, right?
Well, I didn't, because you were better than me on this because you said you called it. When he went to Florida, Dave, I was thoroughly convinced that the SEC defenses would expose the spread offense. I thought it was a gimmick offense that couldn't last in the SEC. And so Urban Meyer going to win a national championship with it, kind of, I think, I don't even consider 2006, because remember 2006 with Chris Leak, it was a semi spread, but it wasn't that great. It wasn't that impressive of an offense. But the one that he won with Tim Tebow 2 years later, that's the one that I thought, I mean, like 2 years later, the whole country was running the spread offense after that. And so it's hard for me to, I got to be critical of Connolly with something like that. Now, he didn't have any of the Spurrier teams on the list. Oh, no, he had one. He had the 93 Florida team on the list with Danny Warfel. As far as Tennessee teams that should be on the list, now this is way in the weeds, but it's funny. He had the 93 Florida team. Dave, I think the 93 Tennessee team should be on the list. That Heath Schuler team, has there ever been an offense as multiple in history as that 93 Tennessee football team?
From a pro style standpoint, you're pretty good. I mean, they look like an NFL team. I mean, really, you watch them, and other than they had a ton of talent too, Caleb. So it's not like it was across the board not nearly as talented, but now they look like a pro team. And the pro style, what did every guy want? Peyton Manning to naming, Todd Marinovich. They wanted pro style after that. So yeah, the 92 team, could it be more trend setting than the 2022 team? Good argument. And that team was loaded as well. They shouldn't be, though, because that team was way more talented than the 2022 team. You would agree with that, right?
That team was loaded. You're right. I mean, but this isn't based on just pure talent. I just want to go through a few others real quick, and maybe I'll do a list on the Tennessee, the 5 or 10 Tennessee teams that had the biggest impact on college football history. But the 1969 team that got blown out by Ole Miss, that was an influential team for a couple of reasons. One, they made Archie Manning a household name by getting blown out by Ole Miss. But the other part of it was that 1969 team won the SEC title with the first significant black contributor in the SEC in Lester McLean. They also had Jackie Walker, a future two-time All-American on that team. And so I think when you look at that, that team spurred integration in the SEC more than any other. And I think that's a big deal, the 69 team. The first team that Robert Nealon coached, 1926, should also be on here because Robert Nealon, that team, I don't know if you know this, Dave, they invented the phone to the sideline from the press box. Nealon built that when he took over Tennessee. And that was an early advantage. When I get back doing my history videos, guys, sorry, took a bit of a hiatus on that. They're starting up in July again. Had a kid. I'm going to break down how Nealon was so successful. He actually was the first to utilize seeing the field from the press box, and he would have coaches call down to the sidelines to tell them what they saw. He was the first to do that because he was an engineer.
Good stuff. That's why we're glad he's back, and he is back. Can you put the link up for our giveaway, as we're going to go ahead and give away that Tony Vitello College World Series autographed baseball right now? If you want to join, it's just $9.98. We'll have recruiting coverage, increased recruiting coverage as we move along. We'll also have the opportunity to interact more often with me and Caleb, which we really, really look forward to. And we'll spin the wheel here momentarily for that ball that we'll give away, the Tony Vitello autographed ball. So hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. As far as influential teams, it's funny we don't mention the best team in Tennessee football history, the 98 team. Why? Because it wasn't influential. It was just old school, hardcore, tough football. Now, I will say that I always thought it was interesting that Miami, a team that was known for flair, turned into a tough pro-style team right after Tennessee for their second run of championships. Did you ever notice that? And the teams did play each other at times throughout their history. So I always thought those two programs had an eye on each other going back to 85.
Well, yeah, they did. Well, 85, Miami was already doing it. Remember, Jimmy Johnson was the one that brought in the 4-3. And
I was talking more offensively, but yeah, he was doing that too. My point was that the 98 team, I don't think was that influential, but it was a little nudge towards, why don't you just play good old-fashioned football, even if you're ultra talented? Do you see what I'm saying?
It was. It was influential also, again, in the multiplicity of the Tennessee system at the time. Dave, how many, we could say, we said our things about Fulmer and Cutcliffe and everybody, so I would say this was probably more Cutcliffe than anybody. How many schools were equipped to go from Peyton Manning to T. Martin in the styles of quarterbacks?
Not many, but you would agree with this, that Caleb, that despite his skin tone, that he was a pocket passing quarterback. T was. I mean, he could run, but he was a pocket passer first. So it wasn't a massive transition.
I don't know. I thought T ran a lot more than I thought it was massive because Peyton could not run at all. And they had design run plays for T. Martin, a lot of them. And
yeah, the only design run plays they had for Peyton was the one he designed for himself when he faked the boot.
Faked the handoff, yeah.
Did you know that he would lie to the entire team and he would actually call the dive? Because
I knew that.
He believed that the offensive lineman and the running back wouldn't really sell it if they thought it was just a fake. Well, it worked and worked in the
Which
NFL.
is why he got your boy DeMarcus Ware one time when he was 38 years old and your Cowboys. Remember that one in 2013?
I remember I was at the beach and I thought that was the worst draft pick ever, and I was wrong. So let's go ahead. If we can put the link for the Patreon group just in the message board, and I'm going to bring up the ball if that's okay with you, Caleb. So here goes the Tony Vitello baseball up on your screen. If you're watching on audio platforms, don't forget that we'll be with you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. Caleb back from his vacation. I got one little one left, and then we're good. So here we go. There is the baseball. It's a nice baseball, College World Series, right?
Yep, it is. Very nice baseball.
Okay, so let's go ahead, and we're going to share that screen now, and we'll have I know I can figure this out. Sharing the screen, and we're going to go ahead and spin the magic wheel of fun. Here goes the magic wheel, and I think TN Jr. won it last gift. That goes out today. Who will be our big winner today of the baseball? Steven. So congratulations, Steven. You are our winner of the autographed Tennessee baseball by Tony Vitello. That's pretty cool and timely, if I do say so myself. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. We'll visit with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Yes, Dylan, Peyton was a great scrambler when nobody was looking. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This